Los Angeles looked different at dawn. From the hills, the city glittered like a sea of tiny golden promises, each light a dream, each dream a voice calling out to be heard. But inside a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the city's forgotten edge, the only light came from a flickering bulb that buzzed like a tired bee. A thin boy sat cross-legged on the carpet, strumming a cracked guitar that looked older than him. The boy's name was Ethan Rivera, 13 years old, thin as a reed, with brown hair that never stayed in place. His fingers were blistered, his nails chipped, and the guitar, his father's, had a hairline crack running across the wood like a scar that refused to fade. The strings hummed softly as he practiced the opening notes of Hotel California. Sometimes he sang out loud, but tonight he only mouthed the words. His voice wasn't ready, he told himself. Not yet. From the next room came the muffled sound of his mother, Elena, coughing. She worked nights at a downtown diner and mornings cleaning offices. There were days she came home so tired she forgot to eat. The only thing she never forgot was to kiss Ethan's forehead and whisper, "Your father used to say a song can save a soul. Keep singing, mi cielo." Her words always stayed with him, half blessing, half burden, because his father, Miguel Rivera, had believed that too. He was a street musician, a dreamer who played for strangers outside cafes and subways. He never made much money, but his laughter could fill a room. He'd lift Ethan onto his shoulders, tap his guitar, and say, "Someday you'll play louder than the city, son." Then came the winter Miguel's laughter stopped. A heart condition, sudden and cruel. No hospital, no insurance, no goodbye. After that, the apartment filled with silence so heavy it felt alive. Ethan stopped singing. The guitar stayed under his bed for months, gathering dust like a forgotten story. It wasn't until the night of the thunderstorm that everything changed. Lightning had cut through the sky, the power went out, and Ethan's mother came into his room trembling, half from fear, half from exhaustion. Without thinking, Ethan reached for the guitar. He began strumming, softly at first, then stronger. His voice, rusty and unsure, echoed in the darkness. It wasn't perfect. It cracked, stumbled, but it was his. When the lights flickered back on, his mother had tears on her cheeks. "That's your father's voice," she whispered. "No, Mama," he said gently. "It's mine." From that night, he practiced every chance he got. Before school, after homework, between her double shifts. He played until the strings bit into his skin, and slowly, note by note, the silence began to heal. One Sunday afternoon, Ethan was helping his mom carry groceries up the cracked staircase of their building when a colorful paper flapped against his leg. He caught it before the wind took it away. America's Rising Voices 2025. Do you have a voice that can move the world? Audition, Downtown Arena, Saturday. Ethan stared at the paper. The letters shimmered like a dare. "Move the world," he murmured, tracing the words with his thumb. His mom noticed the look in his eyes. She didn't need to ask. She'd seen that look before, on his father's face the day he sold his only good watch to buy new guitar strings. "We can't afford bus fare," she said quietly. "And the entry fee—" "I'll walk," Ethan interrupted. "It's only 12 miles, Ethan," she began, but her voice trailed off. She saw how tightly he held the flyer, how his knuckles turned white. Finally, she sighed, opened her purse, and pressed a few wrinkled bills into his palm. "For your dream," she whispered. "And for your father's." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay awake listening to the city hum outside, rehearsing the song in his head. He chose Hotel California for a reason. It was the first song his father ever taught him, the one they used to play together on street corners. It wasn't just music to him. It was memory, grief, love, and hope wrapped in 6 strings. He promised himself he would sing it, not for fame, not for money, but to tell the world who his father was. Saturday arrived, dressed in sunlight and nerves. Ethan woke before dawn, slipped into his father's old flannel shirt, and packed his guitar with care. He ate a slice of bread, drank water, and stepped outside. The air smelled of asphalt and early morning coffee from the corner shop. He began walking. 1 mile, then 2, then 3. The city slowly woke up around him, honking cars, barking dogs, billboards flashing faces of stars who once might have been dreamers like him. Halfway there, he passed a music store. In the window was a gleaming electric guitar, silver strings glinting like treasure. Ethan stopped and stared. Inside, a boy about his age was testing the instrument while his father filmed proudly on a phone. Ethan smiled faintly and moved on. He didn't envy them. He just hoped that Kid would play like he meant it. When he finally reached the downtown arena, a sea of people was already there. Hundreds of contestants dressed like pop idols, carrying microphones, suitcases, makeup kits. Some warmed up their voices loudly. Others took selfies beneath the banner. Ethan's sneakers were dusty, his shirt wrinkled, his guitar case patched with tape. He tightened the strap over his shoulder and stepped into the line. People stared. A group of teenagers behind him whispered and laughed. "Hey, look at the antique guitar. Where's your band, kid?" He didn't answer. He just kept his eyes on the building's glass doors, shimmering in the sun like the entrance to another world. After 3 long hours, his number was called. The room inside was colder than he expected. Bright white lights poured down on a black stage, and the judge's table glowed under its own spotlight. 3 faces looked up as he walked out. Clara Evans, the Grammy-winning diva known for her brutal honesty. Marcus Lee, a record producer famous for discovering young talent. Tina Reynolds, a former Broadway star with eyes that saw straight through people. They had already seen hundreds of performers that day. Ethan could feel their fatigue. "Name?" Clara asked without looking up from her tablet. Ethan Rivera," he stammered. "Age?" 13. "Okay, Ethan, what will you be performing?" He took a shaky breath. "Hotel California. For my dad." That made Clara glance up. "Interesting choice," she said. "Go ahead." Ethan stepped to the microphone. The stand was taller than him, so he adjusted it awkwardly. The audience chuckled softly. He smiled nervously, fingers trembling as he strummed the first chord. Ping! One string snapped, a wave of laughter rippled from the back rows. Someone even clapped mockingly. Ethan froze. His throat tightened. Tears stung his eyes. For a moment he thought of running off stage. Then he remembered his father's words. "Music doesn't stop when a string breaks. The heart finds another way to play." He retuned quickly and tried again. The hall fell silent. This time the sound was softer, warmer, like sunlight spilling through dusty curtains. His voice rose, clear and pure, carrying the ache of every lonely night he'd ever known. On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, the judges leaned forward. The laughter stopped. There was something in his tone, raw innocence mixed with quiet pain, that didn't sound like imitation. It sounded like truth. He sang as if the words were prayers whispered to his father across the miles. His small hands danced over the strings. His eyes glistened under the lights. By the time he reached the chorus, "Welcome to the Hotel California," you could hear people sniffling in the audience. Even Clara's stern expression softened. Marcus tapped his foot in rhythm, eyes wide. Tina clasped her hands together, whispering, "My God, this kid." When the final note faded, Ethan bowed his head. The silence afterward was so deep it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. Then, applause. A wave of it, rising, rolling, unstoppable. People stood to their feet. Someone shouted, "Give him the buzzer!" Ethan blinked, overwhelmed. He looked up at the golden button shining before Clara. Her hand hovered above it, trembling. She didn't press it yet. Not yet. Because she saw something in his eyes, something she hadn't seen in years of shows and fame and noise. A soul singing for love, not for applause. Ethan's knees almost gave way. He clutched his guitar tightly, not sure if he should smile or cry. The lights blurred, the cheers roared, and in that chaotic beauty of sound and emotion, one thought echoed in his mind. "Dad, I did it." The last note still hung in the air like a prayer. For a heartbeat, no one dared to breathe. Then, as if the silence itself broke open, the hall exploded with applause. Every single person was on their feet. Ethan stood frozen beneath the golden lights, sweat beading on his forehead, his chest rising and falling fast. He had dreamed of this moment for years, but in dreams it never felt this heavy, this real. The stage smelled faintly of dust and electricity. Confetti from the previous act still clung to the edges. He looked down at his trembling hands. They had done it, played his father's song before the world. From the judges' table, Clara Evans leaned forward, elbows on the desk. She was known as the toughest judge in America, a woman whose raised eyebrow could end a contestant's career. Yet now, her eyes were wet. "Ethan," she said softly, "do you know what you just did to this room?" Ethan blinked, unsure whether to speak. "You reminded us what it means to feel again," she whispered. "That's what real music does. It breaks you open." The crowd roared again, chanting his name. Marcus Lee, the jazz producer who rarely complimented anyone, took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Kid, that was haunting," he said. "You took an old song and gave it a heartbeat. I swear I'll never hear it the same way again." Tina Reynolds, the pop diva whose smile usually came only after perfection, pressed a hand to her chest. "Why this song, sweetheart?" she asked gently. "Why Hotel California?" Ethan's throat tightened. He looked down at his guitar, a cheap, scratched instrument, its varnish worn away where his father's fingers once strummed. "It was my dad's favorite," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "He used to sing it every night when we didn't have much. He said one day I'd sing it on a big stage, for both of us." The audience fell utterly silent. Even the camera operator stopped moving. "Where is your father now?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "He's—" Ethan paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. "He passed away last year. Cancer. But he told me not. To cry. Just to keep singing. Ate." Collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Someone in the front row covered their mouth. Clara's chin quivered. She turned her face slightly, blinking away tears. "Ethan," she murmured, "he heard you tonight." "I'm sure of it." Ethan looked up toward the rafters, where the stage lights burned like stars. For a second, he could almost see his father's silhouette, smiling, tapping his foot, mouthing the lyrics, the second chorus. Clara cleared her throat. "Would you do something for me?" "Yes, ma'am," Ethan replied quickly. "Sing the last chorus again," she said. "Sing it like he's standing right next to you." Ethan nodded. His hands shook as he placed them back on the strings. He closed his eyes. And then, the hall changed. The noise faded. The crowd disappeared, and it was just a boy and his father's song. "Welcome to the Hotel California." His voice soared, richer, freer, and aching with love. Every note seemed to float through time itself, carrying memories, promises, goodbyes. People in the audience began to cry openly. Even the stage crew stood motionless. "You can check out any time you like. But you can never leave." He strummed the last chord gently, letting it fade into silence. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Clara Evans stood up, slowly, deliberately. She reached out and pressed the golden buzzer. The familiar sound thundered through the hall. That glorious, metallic whoosh followed by the gasp of thousands. Golden confetti burst from the ceiling, spinning through the lights like tiny suns. Ethan stared in disbelief. His mouth fell open, his hands still clutching the guitar. "Oh my God," he whispered. The audience erupted. People screamed, laughed, wept. 1,000 emotions colliding in a single second. Clara walked to the stage through the golden rain, her heels clicking softly. "Ethan," she said, standing before him, "your father gave you this gift. But tonight, you gave us something far greater." Ethan's voice broke. "Thank you for listening," he said through tears. She smiled and placed a hand over his heart. "Never stop singing from here," she said. "This is where real music lives." Marcus and Tina joined them. wrapping Ethan in a hug as the confetti kept falling. The camera zoomed in, a boy drenched in gold, his guitar clutched to his chest, eyes looking skyward. That single frame would circle the internet within hours. Millions of strangers would watch it on phones and TVs, wiping their eyes and whispering, "He did it." When the lights dimmed and the crowd drifted out, Ethan slipped backstage. Producers and crew members swarmed around. But he only searched for one face. Then he saw her, his mom, Elena, running toward him, still in her diner apron, hair messy from work. She grabbed him, pulling him into the kind of hug that fixes everything. "Ethan! I saw it, baby! I saw the buzzer!" she cried. "You did it! You kept his promise!" He clung to her, crying into her shoulder. "Mom, I think he was there," he whispered. "I could feel him." "He was there," she said, voice shaking. "And he's never leaving us again." The producer approached, eyes misty. "Kid," he said softly, "you just made history." Ethan smiled faintly. "No, sir. I just sang my dad's song. By morning, the clip hit 10 million views. By night, 50. The headline read, 13-year-old brings nation to tears with father's song. Messages poured in, from soldiers, nurses, strangers, each one saying the same thing. "Your song reminded me of someone I lost." Ethan read every word. He realized his father's dream hadn't been about fame. It was about connection, about the power of a voice, to heal even those you've never met. And somewhere, above the noise of a world now humming his tune, Ethan could almost hear a soft laugh, a familiar voice whispering, "Told you, kid. Music never dies." He smiled, picked up his guitar, and began to strum again. A quiet melody that floated out the window into the night, joining the stars, the gold confetti, and a promise that would never fade. The morning after the golden buzzer, the world felt different. There was something in the air, a strange, beautiful stillness. Across the city, people whispered about the boy with the guitar, who sang like his soul was made of sunlight and sorrow. Clips of his performance flooded every screen, on phones, TVs, buses, and cafe walls. His trembling voice, that single tear sliding down his cheek as gold rained from above. It was replayed millions of times. For one night, the noise of the world had faded, and in its place, people listened. By the end of the week, Ethan's performance had crossed 100 million views. But what mattered most to him wasn't the number. It was the messages. Thousands of them. From parents who'd lost children, children who'd lost parents, soldiers, nurses, dreamers, all saying the same thing. "Your song made me remember someone I loved. I felt my dad's voice again when you sang. You helped me forgive." Ethan sat on his small bed, reading those messages with his mom beside him. She smiled through her tears. "You see, Ethan? This is what your dad meant when he said music travels farther than our feet ever can." Ethan nodded slowly. "I just wanted to keep his promise." "Mom, I didn't mean to change the world." She took his hand and whispered, "The world needed your promise, baby." You gave them back their hope. The day of the grand finale came like a storm of nerves and excitement. Cameras flashed, fans waited outside the studio holding signs that read, "Sing for your dad, Ethan," the voice that touched heaven. Inside, Ethan stood in front of the mirror again. The same cracked guitar in his hands, the same gentle light in his eyes. He wasn't nervous this time. He was ready. He looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Dad, this one's for you." Backstage, his mom hugged him tighter than ever before. "No matter what happens, you've already won. Because you sang from your heart." He smiled and nodded, walking toward the stage. When his name was called, the crowd rose in one thunderous wave, thousands of people clapping, chanting his name. He stepped into the light. Ethan looked at the audience, then down at his old guitar. The lights dimmed, and he began to speak softly into the mic. My dad taught me that every song has two hearts, one that beats in sound and one that beats in silence. This one is both. He strummed the first note. The familiar tune filled the air. Hotel California. But this time, it was different. Behind him, the big screen began to glow, showing old video clips. His father singing on the street corner, him as a little boy clapping beside him, his mother watching from a diner window. Every note Ethan sang now carried the weight of every tear, every memory, every heartbeat he'd ever known. The crowd began to sway, candles glowing softly in their hands. By the second chorus, even the judges had tears streaming down their faces. When he reached the final line, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." He looked straight up into the lights, and he smiled. The sound faded, replaced by silence so pure it hurt. Then, thunder! The crowd rose to its feet, clapping, cheering, sobbing. People were hugging strangers, wiping their eyes. Clara Evans stood again, hands shaking. "Ethan," she said, voice trembling, "tonight you didn't just sing. You gave your father a standing ovation from heaven." When the final results came in, everyone already knew. The moment the host spoke his name, the winner of America's Rising Voice is Ethan Cole! The hall exploded in golden light again. Confetti poured like rain. Brighter and thicker than ever before, Ethan's mom ran onto the stage, hugging him tightly as the world watched. He looked up through the gold storm and whispered, "We did it." "Dad, we did it." The host handed him the trophy. But Ethan placed it gently on the ground. He raised his guitar instead and said into the mic, "This belongs to every kid who sings when no one's listening, to every parent who believed when the world didn't, to every voice that ever felt too small. You matter." The audience erupted again, this time not in applause, but in love. Fame came fast, interviews, tours, record deals, but Ethan stayed the same. He didn't chase luxury or lights. Instead, he built something new, the Promise Project, a foundation in his father's name that helped orphaned and struggling kids learn music. He wanted every child to have what saved him, a melody, a dream, a reason to keep going. One day, he visited a hospital for children with cancer. He sang for them quietly in the ward, his guitar resting on his lap. A little girl with no hair held his hand and said, "Your song makes me feel brave." Ethan smiled, eyes soft with tears. "That's because you already are." And that night, when he went home, he looked out the window and whispered, "Dad, you see? Your song's still healing people." Years passed, Ethan grew older, but he never stopped returning to that street corner, the same one where his father once sang. He'd sit there every year on the same date, strumming softly, eyes closed, smiling at the memory. One afternoon, as he was playing, a small boy stopped in front of him. He had bright eyes and a shy smile, holding his mother's hand. "Mister," the boy said, "you sing like my dad." Ethan chuckled softly. "Then maybe your dad's singing with me." The boy tilted his head. "Can I try?" Ethan handed him the guitar and watched as the little boy strummed the strings with nervous hands. He sang a few broken notes, off-key, shaky, but full of heart. People passing by stopped to listen. Ethan joined him, harmonizing gently, his eyes glistening, and just like that, the magic began again. One song, one heart, one promise reborn. Decades later, long after fame had faded and the lights had dimmed, people still remembered that moment, that boy, that song. The video of Ethan's Golden Buzzer performance became a timeless treasure, played at graduations, weddings, funerals, even classrooms, because it wasn't just about a contest, it was about life. A reporter once asked him, years later, "Ethan, what kept you singing all these years?" He smiled, eyes shining with gentle wisdom. "Because silence still listens, and somewhere in it. My dad is still clapping." The sun set over the same street corner where it all began. Ethan, now older, sat with his guitar beside a small plaque on the wall that read, "In memory of Michael Cole, the man who taught us that music never dies." He strummed one final tune, the golden light of evening wrapping around him. As he sang the last line, a soft breeze brushed his cheek, carrying the faintest whisper through the air. "Proud of you, son." Ethan smiled, tears glimmering. He looked up at the sky, whispered one last thank you, and closed his eyes as the world listened again. Because some songs don't fade. They echo forever, in hearts, in memories, and in every golden note that reminds us that love never leaves. It just changes its tune. The end. The boy's voice that made the world cry and smile again.